Hey guys, thanks for coming to hang out here on the sessions. A friendly reminder that you can hang out with me in more than one place because I'm also on AMP. Just download the app, come hang out with us Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Just get a little more sessions in your life. We all need it. Mark Anthony Kaye. Do we do full Mark Anthony all the time? Is it just Mark? Is it MA? What do we do?
Well, I think my mom will probably listen to this interview, so
Okay,
I think
okay.
we should probably do Mark Anthony.
Mark Anthony, perfect. I would never offend your mother because she seems like an absolute boss. And we're going to be getting into her in just a moment. But first things first, as I'm doing my research for this interview, Ajax Soccer Club,
Yeah,
excuse me, that's where I grew up.
no way.
Yes, I grew up in
Small world.
Ajax. I
Okay.
know. I also I didn't really realize that the Ajax Soccer Club is like such a thing like Wexford. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
from Toronto. You dabble in all of those like GTA areas.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Ajax Soccer. What was that experience like going out all the way 401 East, baby?
Yeah, it was definitely a trek for a young high school kid after always playing closer to home. But it was cool. Like Ajax had a really good program. They kind of I think hoarded the best talent of players in my age group. So it was
Interesting.
only right to try and move out there to play at that level and at that
Mhm.
time. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I didn't hang out much over there. I had a teammate of mine who actually lived in Pickering, which is just a
Okay.
little west, right?
Yeah.
And he would pick me up. Like I would meet him literally at the border of like Scarborough and Pickering, and they would pick me up and then drive me to training, drop me back there, take the TTC all the way back to like Midtown Toronto.
Oh my, okay. So you're in high school doing this. That
Yeah.
really is a haul. Like, I know in high school, you know what you're doing and you're like, somewhat of an almost functioning adult. But still, to get from Scarborough all the way out to Ajax, kind of like to your own device, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I guess like I don't know, I just was blinded by the fact that I enjoyed, playing soccer so much. So I was like willing to do the trek. My mom taught me really well the TTC system at a young
Yeah.
age. So I was like a pro. I was a pro. I knew exactly what bus to take there, when to get it. And I think that's where like my independency kind of took shape. So I
Hmm.
enjoyed that time in my life for sure.
Did you ever have any moments though? Because I've got to imagine while going to school, playing soccer, doing all these different things, did you ever
Mhm.
like fall asleep on the TTC and like miss your stop and end up somewhere you weren't supposed to be?
I'm sure it happened. I was a very alert kid. Like
Okay.
just the way my mom taught me, like I was hyper aware of everything around me. So I'm sure it definitely happened. Maybe like on the TTC train, I might have
Yeah.
fell asleep, but on the buses where people are constantly coming on and coming off, I was like so hyper aware. So
On it.
but yeah, it was definitely it was weird. I would get home at like maybe, like just before midnight
Oh my
and like I would still
gosh.
finish my homework and then go to school in the morning. And I'm really proud of that little kid because I think of schoolwork now and I'm like, I don't want to even think about it or do it. So he definitely had it down pat.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, learning a little bit more of your story and of your background and learning about your mom and knowing that she was going to school and working multiple jobs and raising you and your twin brothers. Were you aware of all of the work that she was doing? How much of that do you even
Yeah.
take in at that age, or you just kind of take it for granted?
I think I took it for granted, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about giving back to my mom and
Hmm.
really making that a part of my brand now as I move forward in my life because my mom did a really good job of sheltering me from the difficulties she had to go through.
Hmm.
I don't know. I assumed work was all fun and games. Adults go to work. It's fun. It's like kids going to school.
Yeah.
Not knowing that my mom's working two jobs and me and my brothers at like after school programs because she can't pick me up until 6:30.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't until I got older and I went to college, I left the house, and then I started to realize what real life kind of is like for an adult. And I was like, wow, like I
Whoa.
need to really give a lot of thanks and gratitude to my mom for what she's done. So it definitely hit me later on in life, and I was blind to it when I was younger.
It's really crazy too. Like, I have a daughter now. She's a year and a half. And now for me, like, to a similar point, but like raised by like, essentially a single mom. My dad was
Hmm.
around, but I was with my mom most of the time. And for her to work multiple jobs, we played sports. Like I was out doing a million different things. I had no idea the things that
Hmm.
she was going through while like taking us camping and taking us on little trips and like doing stuff. Like, I don't know how the hell she managed to pull that off. So like hats off to the moms
Yes,
and
hats off to
dads.
the
Dads
moms
do it
and the
too, but like
parents.
single
Yeah, yeah.
parents,
Yes,
parents
very
in
true.
general, hats
Yeah,
off to you all. Okay, so your love of soccer, you didn't actually start playing soccer until you were about 9 years old, right?
correct. Yes, correct.
I mean, I don't want to say that's late. You're 9, you're still a child, but a
Yeah.
lot of kids really start like 4, 5, 6, really young.
Hmm.
What was that first moment of putting on those cleats or those boots and stepping out onto the pitch?
Yeah. Um, well, yeah, like I was 8 years old. I think it was grade three at the time. And I would just play soccer in the schoolyard. My school at the time, Young in Davisville, didn't even have grass. It was just pavement. So every day I look at my legs now before I go to training and I see all the scars from that. But it was one of my classmates, his father was an assistant coach for Wexford, and he reached out to my mom and said, "Hey, like Mark Anthony's a really good player. Like you should come join the team." And I had no idea how it worked. I didn't know how organized sports worked. I would just play in recess, and that was my World Cup.
Like by yourself?
Um, no, no, with my
Okay.
classmates and stuff.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes they didn't want to play with me because I was too competitive, but but yeah. So I remember going to my first organized practice. It was like a tryout kind of thing, and I don't know. It just took off from there for me. And I was like, I never not want to be in a situation where I could compete and it's
Mhm.
organized. And yeah, I made the team. And from there on, it was just like a blur. I just never remember my life being any different. I'd always go to training like twice a week and always get picked up, or I'd bike to my friend's house and they would drive me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started late, but it didn't really hinder me in any way. Like I think it was all brewing up from 4 to 9 years old, and then finally I just let it all out once I
Here
was
I
able to get
go.
on a team. Yeah.
Especially like that competitive side of you. Are you competitive about other things as
Oh,
well?
I've grown to give up that side of it.
Okay.
Especially with my wife now, like
Yeah.
she's very competitive. So I'm like, I have soccer to fulfill that for me. So I,
Hmm.
I need to not be like that all the time in the house because I
What do
don't
you
think it
guys
would be great.
compete over? What are like the husband wife
Everything,
competition?
everything. Who cooks better? Who cleans better? Who drives better? Driving better that is a huge competition, I think, for any anyone in a marriage or a relationship. And then you have 10
My
examples of how this
God.
person doesn't drive well, and they have examples of you. So I've learned to douse my competitiveness that's not around soccer.
That's so funny you say that. So the other week, my husband and I were out, and he's an athlete as well, and he
Mm-hmm.
gets competitive about certain things. But I like saw a meme the other day. It was like marriage is basically your wife going gasping every time your husband's driving, and then him just continually getting annoyed. But we were driving, and it was the Cincinnati Bengals were playing, so there was like tailgating happening everywhere. And we're in this like tiny little outdoor parking spot, and we just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get out. There was no way to get out. People had the tailgates down on their trucks, and people are grilling. So the guy actually like moved his truck to like try to let us out. My husband, there was no way he was getting the truck out. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
can I get in there and try it? And he was like, yeah. And
Uh,
he did it. But as soon as, because I got the car out and I was like, oh, am I going to hear about this later? Did I just like completely emasculate from
yeah.
all these people? Luckily, he didn't care. Thank God. Thank God. But sometimes that competitive streak can definitely take over at
I
home.
think it goes both ways. Like my wife is trying to put a bed together because we just moved into our new place in Toronto. We had this bed in storage for a couple of years because we didn't need it when we were in Denver.
Mhm.
And she's at home trying to be Bob the Builder, doing it by herself. And I'm like, hey babe, did you look online to like see if they have like a manual where you can follow it? And she's
YouTube
like,
it,
oh
baby.
no, I've looked everywhere. I've looked for 20 minutes. So I'm like, okay, just send me like the company name. I'll have a look. 30 seconds, I find the manual, I send it to her. And I know it's kind of like burning inside her where she's like, how do I look for 20 minutes? And it goes the same way where like, yes, I'm struggling with something. And she'll be like, oh, let me have a try. And the part of me is like, oh, if I give it to her, and she gets it, like it's gonna burn. So yeah, it goes both ways.
Ah, it's so great. Okay, so side note, because you guys just bought you bought a house in Toronto or a
Well, we're renting. We're
or you
renting. Yeah,
renting? Okay.
yeah.
What is it like being, I mean, obviously you're an athlete, you're making
Hmm.
good money, obviously, but like Toronto is such a gnarly city to be in
Hmm.
price wise. What is
Yes.
it like being an athlete and having to live in a city that is so damn expensive?
It's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like all your hard work to get to where you were in your career financially means nothing. So, and I'm from Toronto, right? So I
Right.
understood that it was always going to be a city that was going to grow in that market. But like the prices are absurd. And when I see the stats of like how much, the average household has to save to pay for a mortgage and all, and I'm
No,
like, we are so lucky and we still feel like strangled a little bit.
I
So
know.
um it's unfortunate. I think we're gonna do all our real estate stuff in like the US, just
Yeah.
better market.
Yeah.
California. We like California. But yeah,
I
it's
mean,
tough. It's
not
tough.
the California's cheap, but Toronto is
No,
can be really
but
brutal.
but that's how you know how expensive Toronto is. If
Hmm.
the place I want to put my money in is California. So it tells you a little bit.
It's really, I was talking to Soraya Tinker. She's a female hockey player in Toronto, and she was saying the same thing of like when you are an athlete and like it's especially a female athlete who are
Hmm.
not making nearly as much money sometimes as
Correct.
what like some male athletes are making, and you're living in this like big metropolis city where you want to be because that's like where the city is and where the fans are
Hmm.
and all that, but it sometimes can just like put you in such a chokehold trying to like live and get ahead and all of those things. It can be really scary. But on the plus side, Toronto as a sports centric city, as you
Yeah.
know, growing up there, living there, and now playing Toronto FC or Toronto S Soccer Club,
Toronto
football
FC.
club.
Yeah.
It
Football
is
club. Yeah.
FC.
Football. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Brittany, edit that out. Woo, that came out fast. But playing for the soccer team out there, what is it like having that fan base being in Toronto?
No, it's good. Again, like I started my soccer journey as like I was in grade 7, I think, when TFC first became a team.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't really participate in a lot of the Toronto FC things because they weren't good at the time. And there was just European football. You wanted to focus more on that. You didn't really want
Sure.
to watch MLS games. But coming back now to the city after seeing the growth, it's really cool. Like people love Toronto FC, and I have to get used to figuring out how to move through the city quietly,
Yeah.
um, because it is a very busy city that people will recognize you. But
Hmm.
like the fans, they I played in Colorado, and I love Denver as a city. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, but fans make your experience so much better.
Yeah.
You feel more alive. You feel like you're actually a part of something.
Hmm.
And that's what Toronto gives you. And you know that with all the other sports teams. Like you look at the Leafs,
Yeah.
like the Leafs have fallen every time in the same place, and their fans are loyal to
Rabid.
the death. You know
Rabid.
what I'm
I
saying?
don't know, to a fault.
So it's all fault. So it's good that TFC is getting that way because soccer is growing. And for us as soccer players, growing up, it was always like soccer is not the sport of choice. But now to see my city embrace it, it feels really good.
What team did you watch growing up?
I watched Manchester United growing up
Okay.
in England.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, my mom got me into that, so that's my favorite team. So I still, big European football kind of guy, and now it's different because I have national teammates who play in
Yeah.
these leagues and stuff. So it's like, oh my God, they're playing against like my fanboy club. But MLS has grown immensely, so it's a little different now because I play in the league. I don't really like watch it as a fan,
Right.
but it's a different time right now for MLS, which is good.
What about your time in Colorado to be playing out there, playing in that altitude?
Mhm.
What the hell does that do to you? Like I can imagine any athlete out there, but especially the cardio that you guys do,
Mm.
oh my, what an advantage to like living there, having that home turf advantage. I mean, I feel like there's nothing else, no other city like that.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is an advantage once you get through it yourself. I remember my first couple of days there. Just I was staying at a friend's house, a teammate's house, until I found a place. And just walking up the stairs from the basement, like you get lightheaded, out of breath. I was like, "What is this place? Like, is this?" And they're telling me, "Oh yeah, you got to hydrate when you get here because there's altitude sickness."
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't understand it for a while. I remember my first training session. I thought my heart was gonna literally fall out of me. But you're right; it is a massive advantage because I remember when we played teams, like they would die by like
Yeah.
the 60th minute, and you take advantage of that. So I always say I think that's one of the biggest home field advantages in our league is in Colorado. But it was nice. Colorado's a beautiful place.
It is. It's
Like
very beautiful.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And everyone is so nice and kind and everyone has dogs, it's a very
Yeah.
dog friendly
Yeah.
place. And people love the outdoors. Like the parks are always full. Like a summer day in
Beautiful.
Colorado, there's not many
Mm,
other places in the States that I would rather be. So it was
agreed.
a very enjoyable experience.
It's so, so nice there. It's funny, we were just there 3 weeks ago, maybe. There
Okay.
was like a really gnarly snowstorm, but I had not been to Denver in some time. But yeah, same thing. We're there. I work for a wrestling company.
Okay.
So we were out there, and yeah, there's signs everywhere. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Like my husband's a wrestler, and like I don't
Uh-huh.
think he wrestled that night, and he was like always happy to be like, I'll just go out there and cut a promo and just talk. I don't need to wrestle in this altitude because
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you have a cocktail in that
Oh
altitude.
my gosh.
Oh, look out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll get
That's
you.
That's not a good thing to put together.
No,
That's for sure.
bad combo. Bad combo. Okay, so World Cup. First
Hmm.
World Cup appearance for Canada since 1986. You were not even born yet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. So just walk me through this. Walk me through like, realizing that you guys were making it to the World Cup, what that whole experience was like, going to Qatar, all of it.
Yeah. First off, yeah, amazing experience. Sometimes I don't have words to really capture the moment properly, but we knew it was going to be a long journey to get there. We had to play 21 games to qualify. Yeah, tough, tough, tough.
Wow.
And it started right after COVID. I think it was the beginning of 2021. But yeah, that was like our journey to get there. Once we got to the final stage, we were so confident we were going to make the World Cup. Like, not one day did we doubt our abilities. And as the qualifying went on, and there was only like maybe 5 games left, and we were sitting top of the table, it started to really sit in our minds that, wow, like, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to get to
Yeah.
a World Cup. And on, I think it was in March of last year when we qualified, that was probably like the biggest moment I think for all of us because it was like a sigh of relief that like this thing that has been looming over our heads for so long, even before we were born,
Yeah.
is like evaporated. It's gone. Like you're gonna see Canada's flag at a World Cup, and yeah, we were just on cloud 9, and it's just funny how it
Crazy.
works as an athlete. Like you sometimes don't take a moment to the saying like stop and smell the roses because like you're like yeah like we made it, we're excited, we're happy, our family's here, but then it's like oh my god, like we have to like now work really hard to make the roster, like it's
Oh
not like
God.
yeah. So that was my mindset. It was like yeah, we got Canada the World Cup, I did it with my brothers, it's amazing. Then I'm like oh my god, like I have 6 months in this year to like make sure when the roster's announced in November I'm on that roster because
Oh my
then I'm
God. It
thinking like, yeah, I'm thinking that like if I feel this great emotion now, but then I want to feel this great emotion again in 6 7 months, and it's scary as an athlete. You're just thinking as the next thing, like, all right, what's the next task? What's the next challenge? So that's like the real part that I don't think people will understand. You know,
That's very stressful. I mean, what are the conversations you guys are having amongst each other and some of the guys whose name isn't called? Like, what?
it's
There's
tough.
so
Like
much work put into that.
and it's high stress, high anxiety. Like I've never seen that many grown men anxious on a daily basis
Ugh.
because they knew that one little injury could stop you from going to a World Cup. A
Mhm.
bad performance could lead to another bad performance. It's like everything was heightened for that year. Um, and yeah, you're right. Like there are guys who were with us on the journey that didn't make the roster. And that's like your
Yeah.
biggest fear. So, I feel for those guys and they were with us, in spirit.
Mhm.
But yeah, once you get to the World Cup, oh my God, it's
Then it's on
amazing.
like Donkey Kong.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
go.
it's amazing. You have nothing to lose. You're like a wild cat getting ready to get out of a cage, right?
Mhm.
Because there's no there's expectations, but you can't really fail
Yeah.
because everyone is excited you're there. So that was a cool experience to train really hard for those 12 to 13 days, trying to do as much as you can to get fit and get ready for these games. But then also like enjoy the moment of like seeing these stadiums, massive stadiums. And the cool thing is you see them when they're empty the day before,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
you see them the next day when they're packed.
How crazy is that moment to be able to go into a stadium and like it really is like I've been able to experience that in certain scenarios as well, and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
walk in and just kind of see like before the energy is now pumped into this building, before it's game time, before the clock starts ticking down, like what were those moments like for you to be able to see both sides of that?
Yeah, I think for me, it was really important to have that moment to myself in an empty stadium just because kind of brings everything back down to earth. And it's like, it's just a stadium that's surrounded by a soccer field. Like you're walking on it like a normal day. There's stands, there's a goal, there's the halfway line, there's the bench. Like reminding yourself that like you've been here before. The
Mhm.
location is different, but you've been here before. So to have that moment and to try and visualize you feeling comfortable in that moment, I think was really important. And then the next day when all the, like you said, all the energy is there and the fans, it's like for me, I would just smile. Like I was
Yeah.
just smiling. Like I would walk out before a warm up and I'm just like looking at all the supporters from different countries, loud, the lights are on. It's the big occasion. And I'm just like smiling because I'm like, wow, like this is something you've dreamed of. To embrace this moment. That's the big moment before you play the game, is like walking out and being
Mhm.
like almost welcomed by the world. And I would just
Yeah.
smile. I just had like a big smile on my face because I'm like, wow, like, I did it. Like, I didn't play as many games I wanted to at the World Cup, but I'm like, I'm here. This is what I
You did it.
wanted.
Yeah.
So that was really important. I'm glad that we did that stuff. And then, yeah, when the whistle blows, it's like, it's game time and it's just another soccer game. So,
What is the prep like? You said, the 13, 14 days, however many days it is, where you really kind of hunker
mm-hmm,
down and you're getting your body where it needs to be, your conditioning where it needs to be.
mm-hmm.
What does that look like? How regimented are you?
Yeah, so luckily, because we were in so many national team camps leading up to the World Cup, like it's very routine. You're you're
Mhm.
you're used to it. But I think the biggest thing is like your heightened awareness about how important everything is now, right? So it's like training is still training, but there's more intensity in it because you realize like the reward is so much bigger on the other side. So you don't
Yeah.
want to leave anything up to chance. Your hydration, like probably the amount of water bottles we went through is like astonishing. Your sleep, like everything
Yeah.
is on
Yeah.
point, because you just don't want to like have any regrets. So in that moment, like I said, like it's a normal routine, but you're just putting so much more into it. And like the training sessions, like for me, I felt like I was on a different level, like of my
Mhm.
concentration and focus. Like for every little detail in training, I was so focused. And the crazy thing is, I actually spoke about this at like a rookie symposium for the MLSPA. It was like I worked so hard for those days. Like best training, I think I've best training mentality and best training like output I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And still, when I got on the field against Morocco, there was like a 5 to 8 minute spell where I needed to like adjust to the game speed. I
Right.
did everything right, and it wasn't
Right.
like from minute zero I was like perfectly into the game. It's still I had
Yeah.
to adjust. So it's like you can do everything to prepare, but a game is still very
Game's a
different.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the psychological toll that
Oof.
takes of doing, your body is capable of doing all of these things, but like you keep saying, is like that pressure is constantly knocking on the door of this is a different scenario that really nobody's been in since 1986. So
Yeah.
what was like the psychological toll that you guys were going through, like you specifically?
Oh, it was a lot. It was a lot. Um, and athletes, we don't speak about it as much. It's becoming a little bit more normalized to talk about the difficulties mentally, like
Mhm.
of just dealing with pressure and dealing with the situation you're in, dealing with being away from home, but you still have responsibilities to take care of your family.
Mhm.
For me, I was lucky enough to have added like a mental coach right when I got to Denver, and like
Oh,
around
that's
March, I
so
think I added.
smart.
So I was able to have like calls with him every week. We actually had calls maybe every 2 days at the World Cup because it was so intense. But to
Yeah.
make sure that I had someone to like kind of vent to and speak to about, things that are concerning me on a daily basis, like not knowing I'm not going to play a game, whether when I know I feel I should be playing a game, or having a really good training session and not feeling you're getting the respect from certain people, So there's all
Yeah.
these little things, but I had somewhere to put it out into, and he helped me big time because then we would talk about it, we would deal with it. He would make sure I know he values, my opinions and what I'm going through, and I was heard. Then we would make a plan on how to deal for the next day. So I was able to unpack everything mentally at the night,
Yeah.
and then make a plan for the morning and just go through that cycle. And I know a lot of my teammates didn't have this, but like I don't think I could have survived in that environment without having like a mental coach who was like fully focused on like my mental health, because it's so draining, and
Yeah.
you could get very depressed by like the amount of anxiety and stress that is related to like this one tournament, because it's so big. Everyone's lives or jobs depend on it.
Yeah.
So the psychological toll was huge, and I just hope that now in sports people will talk about it a little bit more, and maybe it'll
Mhm.
be more of like a common practice where clubs or teams have people that players can
Yeah.
go to just strengthen that, because we work on our body, we strengthen our body, we do conditioning like you're saying, all these things, but then it's like what about like the brain and and
Yes.
the mental side of it. So yeah, if I didn't have him, oh, I don't know how I would have survived.
It really is a lot. I mean, like you were saying, I mean, you can be worried about like the how am I going to perform? How am I going to do this? But then you add in the idea of what if I get injured? Which usually a lot of times when that becomes a thing that you're focused on, that's when you are going to get hurt. Like you
Correct.
you like almost will these things to happen a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But so smart of you to like already have that person like on your team ready to go. But I think that would be such a smart idea for like any sports club to have someone like that on staff. Have a few
Yeah.
people like that on staff. Let's
Yeah.
like get
and
to
and and
talking.
And the thing is, I think it needs to be more for the players, like by the players, because
Mhm.
I think like the national team, like our national team had, I don't know what her title was, but surrounding the whole mental part of the game.
Yeah,
And there's always that feeling of maybe not being safe with this person because they are hired by the
right.
team, and
That's
you
a really
just
good point. Yeah.
they tell you like everything is confidential, but you're like,
Is
mm,
it? Is
like,
it?
are you gonna go to the coach? So the fact that I had my
Right.
own guy, that he only cared about me, he didn't care about
Mhm.
anything else other than me. So like it was easy for me to have those conversations. But I do think teams are doing it. They just need to understand that like maybe there's gonna be some resistance at the beginning
Sure.
from
Sure.
players.
No, that's a really good point. You're right. Yeah, yeah, you're like, who do you work for? Who are you talking
Yeah,
to?
yeah, exactly.
Let's really lock this conversation up a little bit, please. But for World Cup, for you guys to be the first time since 1986, but also to have the women there, to have
Mm-hmm.
the Canadian women's team there. What did that mean for you guys to be able to represent together? And like, how good is that for the sport specifically in Canada?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. It's about time we caught up to them, because they've been leading the
Yeah.
way for a long time
Hmm.
in the soccer world. And it's just for the growth of the game in Canada, I think it's very imperative that both national teams are representing at the highest level. So,
Hmm.
you know, sure it was our time in the light right now, but like the women's team have been doing this for a very, very long
They've
time. So
been
I'm
doing
glad
it.
that
Yeah.
they've been doing it. They've been doing it. So finally we followed in their footsteps. But you know, they support us and we support them, and their World Cup's coming up. I think it's in Australia or New
Yeah.
Zealand or something
I
like
think,
that.
yeah.
So we're very like bound together. Like,
Oh,
you know
that's
what I mean?
awesome.
Like, so because, especially because of the new, equal pay deal that was struck with the US team, like we're trying to make our own too. So through
Awesome.
our success, they get success, and through their success, we get success. So it really brings us together, and I think it'll help the country. There's little girls who've been watching them for the longest time, and now there's going to be little boys who can also match that dream because they've seen a men's team in a World Cup. So it's a good moment for Canada soccer for sure.
I kind of love hearing that because it's always the other way around. Of like,
It
finally, we
is.
get to
It's
see the
true.
women doing something, and now these
Yeah,
little girls can aspire to do something. But it is funny to see it kind of flip flop the other
it
way
flips.
for
Yeah,
young boys that might not have imagined soccer as being a career for themselves and the goals that
correct.
they could kind of set for themselves. It's really really cool. Um, so you guys had to defeat Jamaica to push through to get
Hmm.
through to the World Cup. Was
Yeah.
that did you have any mixed emotions about that? Your mother's from Jamaica. How did she feel about that?
Hmm.
What were those conversations?
Yeah, not really. I think so. We played Jamaica. I think the first time we played Jamaica was in 2018, and I think that was the first time where there was a little bit of a conflict of interest that
Hmm.
I felt, because I was like, yeah, my mom's Jamaican. My whole family's Jamaican, and
Yeah.
here I am suiting up for Canada, like wanting to beat Jamaica.
Yeah.
So um, that was my first introduction to it, and we handled it really well. And my mom like was very adamant that like she supports Canada and that she supports me, so it was never going to be like that in this game to get into the World Cup. So my mom is like diehard Canada fan,
Oh, I
just
love
red,
that.
the color
Yeah.
red. She's still Jamaican, but like we've never really supported their national team, so it was a very easy thing for me to be a part of beating them, getting us into the World Cup.
I don't know that I could be as big. Being Canadian, my daughter is American. I think I'd have to like
Yeah,
have like a half and half jersey or something
yeah, yeah. So
inside
that's
to be like,
and I just think like it's different for everyone, and I'm probably gonna have that situation too. I might have one kid who's American and one who's Canadian, but my mom is a huge supporter of my career, so I think it was very easy for her to just put her Jamaican roots to the side
all
and
right.
root for Canada.
Mom does the right thing all the time. Your mom sounds like an absolute badass. Does she
She's
get to come
awesome.
out to all of your games?
She does now. She does
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
When I was living in LA, I flew her out a couple times just for her to get that experience. But
Yeah.
now being at home, she's at every game and she loves
Hell
it. She
yes.
eats it up, man. She eats it up.
What was that LA experience like for you? Just to have sort of that more celebrity attachment to obviously
Mhm.
being in Los Angeles, but now all these people want to come out to the games. They want to be seen and heard and all those things. What's
Yeah.
that experience like as opposed to being in Toronto?
Well, again, I didn't know what to expect when I first got to LA. Obviously, you think of LA, you think of Hollywood, right? So I didn't know how soccer was going to be received.
Hmm.
And because I was at the club from the beginning, I was able to see that the club was trying to create a real authentic relationship with the city of LA.
Hmm.
So it was very easy for me to not get distracted when they brought all these actors, TikTokers, celebrities to these
Yeah.
games because I understood the real brand message they were trying to put out.
Hmm.
But LA was definitely new for me because I moved from Louisville, Kentucky to Los Angeles. So there's a big
Big
culture
gap.
shock there.
Yes.
Yes. Um, 2018, I was very low key, lived in Pasadena. I think I went out maybe like two or three times. And 2019, I moved and I was living like right by the Staples Center. I had a group of teammates that were all around my age. And we did enjoy the lavish, stuff that LA has
Uh-huh.
to offer. The nightlife, the going to events and meeting all these people, and it was all fun. It was fun for a certain amount of time, but at the end of the day, it's like it gets very tiring and it gets old,
Sure.
you know. But I loved my time in LA. Like that city for us for an athlete, that city for sports teams in general
Hmm.
is like the
Be
best place to
legit.
be.
It's pretty
Best,
legit.
best, best place to be. And
I
our
was
owners were amazing too, so that made it even better.
I was just watching the Shaq documentary on HBO. And
Okay.
he's talking about, when he went from Orlando out to playing with the Lakers and like how different that was for him to like adjust. I mean, obviously Shaq, he's into a little bit
Hmm.
of everything from
Hmm.
rapping and movies and all of these things, but to like have his team have to be like, all right, we got to like really focus back in, and him talking about like being at games, and you've got like Jack Nicholson there, and they rattle through all these different like celebrities, and him like having that realization of like, okay, they're here to watch me play. Let me give them a show. Let me show them what I do, and to like really lock into like that other level of athlete that he was able to do. Did you ever have like any moments like that of like so and so's here? Oh my God, or like somebody that you like really admire, anything like that?
I think a little bit. I think I was because I was so young in my career, I really wanted to make a name for myself. And the only way to do that was kind of from my on-field performance.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really let anything get in the way of that. But yes, there were moments like Will Ferrell is, an owner, right?
Yeah.
Magic Johnson is an owner. We go
Yeah.
to like a team gathering at one of the owners' houses in Beverly Hills, and Will Ferrell is like the MC.
Oh my God, I would
And
die.
and and every like he's not even trying to be funny, but everything he says, I'm laughing. Like I'm just laughing. I'm like, it's got to be funny. It's Will Ferrell,
Yeah.
And so when we were at the stadium and stuff, and these people would come, like I think if maybe if Drake showed up, maybe I would have got distracted.
Sure.
But a lot of these other people, like I value what they do in the entertainment business, but I was able to focus,
I mean, I
because
feel like you still run the risk of Drake showing up. I mean, you're in Toronto. We know he goes down to
well,
the Raptors games. He's kind
yeah,
of out and about. I
I'm waiting.
mean,
I'm waiting for it. I think he
let's
needs to be a little
go.
bit more involved in soccer in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, he really wears Canada and Toronto on his sleeve. So I feel like if he really wants to encompass all of those things, he's got to get on board. Let's go.
I would hope so. We just went to a World Cup. I
Yeah.
like we did meet him after we qualified.
Mhm.
We did have a moment where we met him. But he can do a little bit more. You know, if
Mhm.
I know his schedule's busy.
I
So,
mean,
but if he
is
can
it?
find some
How
time
busy
to
is
slip us
he?
in, yeah,
He's fine. It's not like he has like, a season to play. He can pick and choose his off
yeah,
days.
exactly.
Come down and hang out. Let's go. Okay, so you're playing, you're doing all these things, everything's going great. What do you want to do after soccer? And I would just like to add my 2 cents before you chime in, because already having this conversation with you, you're very charismatic, very great talker. Do you want to be on the broadcast side of things for soccer at all? You would really knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I definitely have dabbled in that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I just came back, like I said, from MLS Media Marketing Day. I was in San Jose and we went to the Apple Park and had a lot of good conversations that I think will give me future opportunities when my career's done.
Yeah.
Obviously, yes, I know the broadcasting part of it. Like I do like talking, so that helps with that. Um, but I am getting interested in, a management role within sports, within a
Okay.
club. I would like to, see if I can piece together an amazing team or amazing club. So there's
Yeah.
that part of it too. But I think I'll have my hand. I'll wear a couple different hats as my career winds down. But broadcasting, definitely, I would like to do some sort of TV personnel stuff.
Yeah, you'd kill
I'm
it.
gonna do a lot of charity work. I already have my mission and the name for the charity and the foundation. I just haven't like even released it to anyone because
Yeah.
um me and my wife still got some stuff to work on. And
When's that
then
going to
yeah,
launch? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet. My plan, I think I need to talk to people who have done it, but
Mhm.
my plan is to create an authentic following. So that people really know what's important to me, So I already work with a single mother's charity out in
Mhm.
Santa Clarita. Like
Yeah.
my goal is to build up that relationship, then start a new relationship with a charity in Toronto, my hometown, and then kind of start to branch out more so that when I do start my foundation, like people already understand that like this
They
is
get
something
it.
I've been working on for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I know there'll be some good job opportunities for me. I'm gonna have to be strategic about what I choose because it'll be my wife's turn to, kind of
Yeah,
lead in that way. I can't always be the one on the road all the time. So that will
sure.
be a big decision that I have to think about. But yeah,
I
we'll see.
love that. It's fun. I wasn't even thinking about asking you that, but as we're talking, I'm like, God, this could be a really great broadcaster. Like, let's get that going. Yeah, you'd kill it. It would be cool.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Um, Steve Nash, what's his big involvement with Soccer Canada right now? I'm a huge Steve Nash fan. What a
Yeah,
lovely
Steve
human being.
Nash. Yeah, he's super nice, super nice. I don't know his direct involvement with Canada Soccer. I actually had the chance to train with him a couple of years back in LA, at the LA Galaxy's
I mean, he
training
got a
field.
chance to train with you, and you
Yeah,
are
he's
the
good,
soccer player. I'm sure he
but he's
is.
he's good. He's
Yeah,
very good.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know much other than the fact that he's like a massive iconic sports legend for us Canadians.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and he's done a very good job to stay relevant
Hmm.
in his sport. So but in terms of soccer, no, I don't know too
Not
much
much.
about what
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I was just kind of like hear his name sort of swirling around with it. And I was like, I don't really know exactly what he
Hmm.
does or like what his role is with that.
Maybe
But
something on the West Coast, like in
yeah,
Vancouver or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when there's athletes that are really great at multiple sports. Are you good at
Hmm.
multiple sports or is soccer your one and only?
I would like to think I'm good at other sports, but maybe not the level of Steve Nash.
What else?
So
What else do you play? Did you play hockey at all growing up?
no, I didn't play hockey. I grew up with all hockey players. I
Of
just
course you
never
did.
got into it. But I was decent at basketball. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So again, not like Steve Nash. Like I don't think like I'd be able to go to an NBA like shoot around and hang out with those guys. But
Yeah.
I definitely did play basketball was huge for us in Toronto growing up. Just it was easy to play. You
Yeah.
didn't really just needed a hoop and everyone loved playing basketball.
Hockey is
So
expensive as hell.
so
Ooh,
expensive.
it's so expensive.
I could never go to my mom and ask her, "Hey, can I join a hockey team?" No chance. And
It's
plus,
so expensive.
I was so delayed in the development. It wasn't like soccer where like I could play in the schoolyard and still gain some skills. Like I was so delayed, like the stick handling abilities. Like we would play hockey in gym class, like ball hockey,
Yeah.
and I would just like, yeah, I'll just be the goalie. Like I just played in net because I just couldn't handle the puck. And it was just all the hockey players were great at soccer. They were able to do everything. Like one of my friends who plays in the NHL, like he was a really good soccer player. Tom Wilson plays for the Capitals. Like
Yeah.
me and him like used to go toe to toe in soccer, and then he's like, I'm actually better at hockey. I'll go make the NHL. It's like
It's
okay,
such a trip. It's so crazy. There's a guy that plays for the Bengals that, like, yeah, he played for the Pittsburgh Pirates for a little while and then, like, had an
wow,
injury. And he's like, I'm just going to go pick up football now. It's like, no, you're like, I just don't understand how people like excel at such levels like that. It's nuts.
right?
It's like superhuman strength. Do the athletes from different teams, do you guys all like kind of rub elbows and hang out together at all?
Yeah, because the MLS is a very tight knit community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and guys get shifted throughout the league a lot. So whether it's your national team teammates who play on different teams, then whenever you guys are like, whenever you're together, obviously those are your teammates. But when like I've played for three teams and I feel like I know all 300 players within the league. It's
Yeah.
just it's I don't know, it's just weird like that. Like I said,
Yeah.
we go back to this like MLS media and marketing day, like everyone who's there,
Yeah.
like and you could have a conversation with five different groups of players. So I think it's pretty cool. We're all around the same age too. MLS is
Yeah.
very young, so
Yeah.
but yeah, we
Yeah.
do rub elbows with the
Oh,
other
good
teams.
to
Yeah,
know. I love that.
yeah,
That's cool. Okay, so before I let you go, I would be remiss to not talk to you about Pele, the passing of Pele
yeah.
recently. I mean, obviously the impact that he's had on the sport. Um, what's like your memories of being able to watch him and just the effect that he did have on soccer?
Yeah, for me growing up, like he was the most spoken about, you know, player from the World Cups, like what he was able
Yeah.
to do with Brazil, young guy going in, scoring goals. The thing that stood out to me is he was always smiling. I don't know if they only posted photos of him smiling, but he was always so passionate and excited to like play this game, you know, so much joy eluded him. And for me, like it was like he was kind of like a god in a sense.
Yeah.
What he
Yeah.
was able to do, how he was able to bring a country together, and also like we should talk about like a black man, you
Yeah.
know, in a sport, and he was very dominant.
Mhm.
So for us, for me as a young black athlete, looking up and being like, well, this is the sport I play, and Pele is the best. Like that does worlds for your motivation and your confidence going forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was really saddening when he passed away. Obviously, you knew he was dealing with a lot of health conditions, but like it's just the fact that when you lose a legend, like it hits differently.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it hits
I mean, it's one
it's
of
like
those
a
things that like you're right. It does hit different. And I think it's one of those things that hits people, not just in the soccer community. Like you
yeah.
said, he was like that God level athlete that I
Hmm.
think if you watch any sport, whatever your sport is, I think still there's like that recognition of like, wow, look at what this man was able to achieve throughout his career. And I think that you kind of like feel that trickle effect
Yeah,
around
and
the
I think
world.
that's the biggest thing. If like, and I would tell people, it's like you don't need to be the most famous person, most successful, make the most money, but it's like we're all gonna die at some time,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do people feel when you're gone?
Yeah. When
That's
they
like a
talk about
really good
you.
representation of like how many lives you affected and touched. And
Yeah.
with Pele, like the whole world was mourning.
Yeah.
People who don't even like soccer, but they heard about what he brought to it.
Yeah.
So it just shows what type of person he was. And he had far much more success off the field because his career was only a certain amount of
Yeah.
years in his overall lifespan. So
Yeah.
his ability to really continue to affect people in a positive way was huge.
Certainly. Well, listen, Mark Anthony, if people have not been out to a soccer game, what should they look forward to? We can talk Toronto specifically, but you've been able to play
Mm-hmm.
for many different teams. If
Yeah,
somebody has not been out and got that full experience, what's in it for them?
yeah. For MLS, for sure, is growing. I think in the terms of the environment of the stadiums, they're becoming more fun and
Yeah.
enjoyable. I think the clubs understand how important it is to have real supporter sections that kind of just continue to inject that energy into a stadium. So for new people who haven't watched soccer, it's like go to these games. They're actually fun. I know
Yeah.
there's this whole thing about soccer is a boring sport. There's not a lot of goals, which hey, we should talk about because in football, right? Seven points is 6 points is a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes the games are like 21-7. That's 3-1,
Yeah.
people. So you know what I
I
mean?
mean, he's not lying.
So once you get over that, then
Right.
yeah, no, you'll enjoy soccer because it's electric, it's fast paced, and it's really geared towards fans now to enjoy their experience in the stadium. So let's hop on it. It's going to be big. There's a World Cup in 2026. Find a team that you support. Find a player that you're going to support. Find a country you're going to support. If
Mhm.
you're American, support the U.S. If you're Canadian, support Canada.
Do it.
But yeah, it's constantly growing, so it's a good time to get involved with it now.
Is this a dumb question? Is 2026, is that in Canada?
It's in Canada,
It
Mexico, and the
is.
U.S. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. Got it. Hell
yeah.
yeah.
Three, yeah. So it'll be
Very
nice.
cool. Oh,
Really
I
cool.
love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that'll be
Hmm.
awesome. And now that's how I'm going to start scoring football. It's 3-1. That's the way
Three
I
to
see
one.
it.
That you know what I mean. Whatever we could do to get more people to
Yeah,
to start following soccer. So
I love that. Well, dude, thanks so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the season. And next time I'm home in Toronto, I'm coming out to a game. So get me
perfect.
a
Thank you.
scarf. I will be
I got it.
there. Giddy up.
I got you. Thanks, Renee. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.